When I think about people watching this, it should be a flag of some sort that they're not enjoying sexual
1000%,
intimacy as a
1000%.
married couple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, why are you not creating an environment of safety and in one another where you can say, because if, and I'll go stereotypical here, headache, nope, not tonight, I'm mad at you, you didn't do the drop off, whatever. It can often for men feel like a personal rejection. There's something in me that's rejected. It's not the sex, it's me as in my personhood. But also a woman, right? Where is there a rejection? What about my body? Is it my stretch marks? Is it my mom boobs? Is it my whatever? What about me as I'm aging? Is no longer like these beautiful women with their lashes and their tummy tucks.
Men are
and
having to
whatever.
deal with on their social media and
Yeah.
access to porn and all that. They're having to their wives are having to compete with that.
When I'm talking to women about this, it seems almost like sex is a chore. And when sex just becomes a chore that you just mark that, check that box, like something ain't right.
Says something ain't right. Something ain't right. I said something, yeah, I said something ain't right. Something ain't right. What?
We just did episode 10 and we couldn't squeeze it all in, everything we wanted to say about everything that wasn't right. So we decided to return for episode 11 to cover the topic of sex within Christian marriage. It was about singles, it was about fornication, and all the things singles have to deal with when it comes to sex. But this episode is going to cover married couples. And so I'm excited. The only way to do this was to have an expert in the room. But before I introduce you to our experts, I'm going to say experts, and you'll see why in a little bit. Sexperts, okay. I want to introduce you to my co-host. Of course, I'm your boy, Trey Nine, and this is...
What's up, y'all? It's Jessica, and I just want to say that I am nervous this episode, y'all. I don't know what's going to happen.
Me too.
White out, I'm a little nervous, probably not that nervous, though.
White out will have plenty of wisecracks for us in a little bit. I like to dive right in. This topic isn't talked about a lot, especially in the raw, real way that we're going to do it. It's going to get so real in here that I had to bring this woman in. So let me introduce you to the woman across the table from me. This
What's up,
is
y'all?
my wifey.
What's up, y'all? I'm Amanda Herring, also Trey's wife and mother of 4 kids, all the way from 27 down to 13. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
All right. And to her left.
I'm back.
Yes. Hey,
Welcome back.
just
I
in
am
case
back.
they didn't see episode 10,
Yeah.
tell us who you are,
Sure.
what you do, your family, so forth.
Yeah, I'm Elizabeth Westbrook. I am a licensed social worker. I am a neuropsychotherapist, and I am a sex therapy associate under consultations who's credentialed by the American Board of Christian Sex Therapists. My husband and I have 4 children that keep us really busy. And yeah, who are you?
Thomas Westbrook, married to the Elizabeth Westbrook, and all the credentials that she has, which also makes me a expert by practice. So excited to be here today.
Yeah.
You just
So you got two married couples in here, and then you got one married man. His wife isn't here, but he's a married man. You got a woman who was married before, who is now single, that one day is going to find her married man. So this is going to be pretty interesting, and we'll keep it pretty relevant to our Christian folks out there who are wondering about this topic. And so just to kick it off, why is the topic of sex within Christian marriage, why is it avoided oftentimes I know there's an occasional sermon about it, but it's just not talked about enough, and I believe it's one of the most important things within a marriage, but it just seems that a lot of people are struggling with it within marriage. I get to hear it from a lot of men telling me, their struggles, and you probably hear it from both as a counselor. But why do you think that this is such a struggle, even though it's supposed to be a gift from God.
Yeah. I think it's both. I think it is a gift, and I think that we have really diluted it. I think we have sensationalized it and idolized it, as opposed to holding it rightly in the context of marriage. Like, I've talked to my husband today more than I've had sex with my husband today.
Sure.
So if we're able to recognize in the grand scheme of that relationship,
Hold on. Is that a problem?
if that's, I don't know what rap music we're listening to where these all-nighters are like the jam. I am telling you, that is just unsustainable. But go ahead, answer Truth's question.
Not enough pineapple juice in the world. No, so no. I'm glad. I'm glad that we talk.
Yes.
You know, and I think communication is big, right? So, you know, yes, sex.
And we will be talking more
Yeah,
than we will be
like,
having sex as married folks
1000%.
in our life.
There's
which
no
is what you said.
Real life is not like every day, all the time, and so I'm glad that we communicate, because without communication,
There is no sex.
Right.
bingo.
Okay, go ahead. Finish
Yeah.
your thought.
So I think if we can take it off the pedestal, then the allure of it lessens. And if we can see it rightly in the context of relationship, that it is for uniting one another, and it's a fun way. Like I said in the last episode, lovers and friends. Like you can play with your partner, and so sometimes there is a discomfort, I think, in the church in being able to talk about this, because we have turned it into something that is maybe nefarious in some ways, instead of saying, this is beautiful, be free, explore, have fun. But it gets lost in, like, can I say, like, the powers that be? We want to be politically correct. We don't want to push anybody away. So we can't say that it's okay to find, pleasure in the bedroom with your spouse.
Which we're going to get
Yeah.
into detail on some things that we want to know. Is this off limits and so forth? But before we do, are there any myths that, and this is for everybody, are there any myths when it comes to what Christians believe about sex that y'all can think of? Any myths? Anybody?
Give me an example.
So growing up Catholic, right, and this is not necessarily a complete Catholic belief, but I heard this, where if you have sex before marriage, then you're going to hell. Right? And so doesn't matter. I mean, just you do that, you're going to hell.
Okay.
So fear
is true.
fear
That is
of God in that. And so, I did want to add one thing, kind of in part of this. I also think in church, you have, pastors that have to come off above reproach, right? The strong, perfect image of, I'm great in all the ways, I'm doing all the things the right way, I'm handling all the things the right way. So imagine your pastor standing up on the altar on the stage and talking about what he and his wife did in the bedroom and, how it was unifying in their marriage. How are people going to respond to that pastor? Are they really going to be accepting of that? So I don't think so.
Of course, we're not talking
Yeah.
details,
Right.
but should he be very open and without reservation? Because we do believe he's having sex with his wife. If he's not, there's probably something wrong with their marriage.
Something ain't right.
But do you think that's part of the myth, is that Christians can't talk about it? Christians can't be open with it? Pastors can't be open with it from the pulpit?
I think traditionally, a lot of Christian marriages, maybe not today, but sex was to recreate, to create life, and wasn't really for enjoyment, or wasn't really for pleasure. I think that was very much how it was looked at. And I mean, not so much today, like I said, but that's one of the myths that, there's a good chance that it has carried on in some families. Some families, that's just what it is. And literally, moms might not teach their daughters, but it's understood that that's something that you do in a marriage, but maybe that it's not something that's a huge enjoyment in the marriage. It's just, I think there is a myth.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
I also don't think that a lot of like in seminary, this is not something that's talked about in seminary, from at least my understanding, a course on how to discuss sex in the church.
That's true.
And so
What? I never thought about that.
and so you can only teach what you're taught. You can only teach what you're at least equipped to go out and teach confidently, right? So unless you have this lived experiences and you're in a church setting that makes you feel comfortable enough as the pastor to lead that kind of way from personal experience, without being kicked out by the elders or kicked out by the powers that be, right? So and I think that's more rampant than not.
So I also think about, if if you go back in history, just how pure the Christians
Yeah.
would try to be to separate themselves from the worldly folk. Nowadays, we've done episodes on how Christian women are dressing. They're dressing sexy, how they're in their cameras doing sexy images and puckering their lips in a certain way because of social media influence. And so has purity culture, where, which Christians, I think, have created for a good purpose, because purity is what we preach, has it contributed to unhealthy views of Christians and sex?
Are you asking? Me
Yeah. So
specifically?
in other words, we went
Sure.
far.
Yeah.
That,
I believe that I think we have to first define what is purity culture.
Yeah.
And so if I understand correctly, what I'm assuming that you're thinking in the like True Love Waits movement and the purity, like the purity rings that the Jonas Brothers had,
There you
but
go.
like,
Goodbye.
huh?
I kissed dating goodbye.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
was
True
one.
Love Waits.
Oh, okay, yeah. The sex is designed for marriage between a man and a woman after they've signed their marriage covenant. Like purity culture is that. Anything outside of that is just like, this is not great. And so purity culture has done a disservice in that we have made sexual intimacy just intercourse. And so if everything else is on the table, if there's mutual masturbation, if there's oral sex, if there's making out, is there heavy petting, all of the bases, right? I think that can set us up for a lot of unintentional harm. So abusive purity culture, like that young girl did you guys see this viral video of the young girl that was pregnant? She got shamed in her church.
Yeah.
They didn't
Yes,
have a
it
baby
was
shower
terrible.
for her
Yes, yes.
because she got pregnant out
And
of
called
wedlock.
her out and
Called her out,
bad.
crying. She's like 16, and I'm like,
Yes.
man, I would welcome you into my home.
Yeah, it
Like,
was
let me
terrible.
shower you with love. And so, if we have held, I believe, yes, to answer your question, absolutely, purity, the abusively laid purity culture has wounded us, absolutely, and taken fear and placed it into intimacy where it does not belong.
I kind of feel like you think of the Christian couple, and I know even guys coming from the streets, who they just been laying up with everybody, and they come to Christian and they're thinking, oh, get straight, look real clean and wholesome, look real pure, because your sex life is pretty much over. You will never have good sex again. That seems to be the view for Christians. I don't talk to them like that. You know what I mean? I don't give them that impression. Like, it's not supposed to be over. It's supposed to become the best you've ever had.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Not you. You can't agree.
I can agree.
She was married.
I was married.
You were married?
I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was married for 3 years, but I was with him for 8.5 years. And I will say this, like, that was the best sex I ever had. And I think it was more of an intimacy. Like, it was a sacred thing.
Who's being told that?
Yeah.
Most people are thinking they're going to lose something when they get
That's
married.
true. No, that's so
I'm going to
true.
lose that sexual experience, that sex life, that, they think they're going to
It
lose
could
it.
be like the image of the priest. You know how priests, they don't have sex, right? Priests, they're like, you got to be away from a woman to be holy. They equate that to holiness. So somewhere it gets like in the culture
Yeah.
preemitated in your mind. Or also like a lot of pastors fall into sexual sin. Why are they falling into sin? If their sex life should be so good,
Yep.
they shouldn't be falling into sin.
That's what I was going
right?
to say.
So
It ain't always your sex life isn't good that people commit adultery. We're going to get into that a little bit too. But yeah, with so much bombarding men and women from the culture, makes it hard for them to feel like they're missing out on something. Because your wife's not acting like a porn star. You think she's supposed to because you've consumed so much porn and you've seen these women and you think your wife's supposed to do that. We're going to get into that. I know Jessica, being a single woman, has a question that goes for us married folk. So go for it.
So from a singles perspective, is there any advice that you can give? Is sex something that we talk about when we're dating? Or when do we talk about that before marriage? And how do we approach that?
And an example of that is when I got ready to marry her. Right? Well, when I decided, I said, look, this is the one thing that is number one need for me, sex. Like, I don't agree with you trying to use that as a weapon. I don't agree with a woman saying, well, I'm going to cut you off tonight because I'm mad at you. I said, it is a serious need for a man to have sex. So we talked about it before we got married. and she didn't have a problem. That would have been the time for her to probably disclose to me, well, I'm kind of uncomfortable because I was raped, so that's what she means is like, shouldn't they be talking about that prior to getting married?
I don't remember you saying it was your number one need. I don't remember you saying
That's fine.
that was number one.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I could be wrong. But it was, I mean, it was definitely up there. Like, this is very important to both of us.
Yeah,
And we need
so
to make sure it's
top
understood.
priority.
Yeah, okay. It was up there as a top. It was
Yeah.
at the top. Yeah, I'm not sure about number one. But
Top two,
definitely,
right?
we absolutely discussed
She does
it.
have a better memory than me.
Yes.
That's so.
But we
so-
talked, no, we talked about it for sure.
We
Like,
talk about these things before you got married.
yeah, we did. We talked about this.
So I'm wondering, like she said, is that something? Hey, you need to talk about that.
When do we talk about that?
Because what if her sex drive?
Early and often. I think so, right? Because if we are, if my husband had not created a safe enough environment for me to disclose some of the wounds from my past, and I would have carried that in, my desire for sexual purity was a big, big deal. And we walked that out with a lot of conversation frequently. What does this look like for us? Because we had both been married before. Like, this is both of our second marriage. And so being able to say, well, we know what this is about. There wasn't this like wedding night thing that we're waiting for. I mean, there is, but we'd already like experienced that with other people. And so statistically, a lot of the viewers are going to also be in their second or third marriages. Maybe it wasn't from divorce. Maybe somebody's spouse had passed away.
Right.
Yeah.
And so being able to feel comfortable with saying, maybe this is, I don't even know that this is a priority for me, but I know that this is how I've been wounded. So if you come on to me this way, if maybe you're too aggressive, or conversely, a lot of women have higher sex drives than their husbands do.
Yeah.
And so do they feel weird? Do they feel ashamed coming and saying, hey, like, I need this connection, and he might be stressed from work, he might be stressed with kids, he might be stressed with whatever. Those conversations, I think, the less we can make them like taboo, and it's more like, let's talk about it over queso. Like, how was that for you?
I was going to say, it'll be awkward. No, but it can be awkward, but you just have to get in there and do it. And the goal is to make it less taboo.
I think one of the things too, and I kind of go back to like early 20s, right? You know, people that are in the church, right, or not in church, they're 22, 24, they're being pushed to get married. And I don't know how many people nowadays are talking to their kids about sex. I think that that's a conversation that should probably happen more with kids and their parents growing up. And so I honestly think that a lot of people, as they go into their first real relationship with an intention to get married, they should talk about it, but I don't think they know how. And I think that's where pre-marriage counseling comes in. But I would even say this: if you're single and you're dating with the intention to get married, book an appointment with my wife, right?
Yeah.
And I say that seriously to say, hey, have somebody there that can help you interpret the very different languages that exist between man and woman, in that situation.
So I took premarital counseling my first marriage, right? Amanda's my second marriage. In my first marriage, I was 19 years old, right? She was my ex-wife was 18. And we did cover that topic. And, at 19 years old, you have your idea of what sex is, but it was good that it was discussed in premarital counseling, so you kind of had reasonable expectations. When I got ready to marry her, I didn't feel like I needed the counseling. I felt like I was a professional married man. I felt like, but you're coming into a new relationship with a new woman. She's not going to be the same as your prior. So how many of us, yeah, she's better, no doubt. How many of us, and you can answer this because it's your second marriage, like, do you go, oh, you know what, I'm going to need some counseling on that, some premarital counseling on that? Or do you feel like, you know what, I got this?
Yeah, I definitely think, I was previously married, right? And we actually did premarital counseling. And although we didn't really get into the topic of sex during our premarital counseling, I actually kind of think I wish we would have.
Okay.
To the point of like, yeah, been there, done that. But my previous sex life in my previous marriage was not
Healthy.
Wasn't healthy. It wasn't
Fulfilling.
It wasn't great.
Yeah.
And with that, right, my preconceived notions of what sex should be in marriage, I didn't have a really healthy foundation. And so, and
Do you want to expand on that?
yeah. So, when I was 14, I lost my virginity to a 19-year-old. And I had no clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
I had no clue what I was doing. And it was, I didn't drink, I didn't party, but like that was my escape from some really rough stuff that I was going through physically and mentally. You know, and so, you know, starting there and then, you know, just through the, like up through my first marriage, none of it was a healthy foundation.
Sure.
You know,
It's perverted.
My parents did their best, right? Love my parents. They're still happily married and great, but it wasn't a topic in our home. It wasn't
Not at
something
all.
that I talked about. You know, and like to their point, like, I don't think they're expecting me at 14 to start doing that. But surprise, it's happening in the world more and more.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, whether you marriage 1, 2, 3, 4, anytime that you can have somebody peel through the layers of what you've been through and speak some, you know, so realigning, refocus.
So if there's some trauma there, some things in the past, it's probably a lot wiser. I know I didn't do it. You know, I didn't do premarital counseling with her because I felt I was a pro already. But
So is
Sexpert.
but which of course, you know, every marriage struggles with issues in their marriage. And you struggle through it. I kind of feel like you get through it if you have someone, if you love each other, love's gonna conquer all. But there are some situations like adultery and things that rip marriages apart. So I think with what Thomas just said, do you think it's more prevalent that people who come from where he comes from an unhealthy sexual foundation should get premarital counseling that involves the sex part talk with that person?
It is interesting because we normalize things that are trauma all the time. Like we have no idea that the way that our parents are talking to us or about us or sexualized, they make innuendo comments at the dinner table. And like, that's just normal. Like I have a client like who has been so hypersexualized that it was just like normal for them. And so you may take these things into relationships and then you realize in the real world whenever somebody, and I'm not saying it's me, but like anybody who may have a deeper perspective of trauma or psychology or something, wow, did you recognize that these things that you're accepting in your relationship are actually these defense mechanisms or these coping skills where
Give some examples of what that would look like.
Sure. Let me try to think of. So if somebody is, let's use like sexting, right? If somebody is soliciting for photos and you might like feel uncomfortable with that, but you've been taught since you were little that you need to perform to get affection or you need to be chosen, well then I may do something that makes me a little uncomfortable because this is the only person that's giving me attention in my life. It's the only person that values me. And so if I don't send the cleavage shot, if I don't like have my butt cute in my leggings, well, then where are they going to go? And so just unpacking where is their unhealth that we have normalized.
Gotcha.
It might be one of the first steps.
And that young lady who's doing that gets married, and then maybe the guy and her never discuss like, hey, you can't be doing that anymore. Because she gets on her Instagram, she's a married woman, and she's still showing her cleavage. And she's still trying to attract people with her body. And then the husband's like, wait, hold up.
Or encouraging it. Well, the opposite end is also true, right? If is there something in Thomas that's like, I need my wife to be so sexually attractive to other men because it brings up something in me. I need to fight for her. I need to be jealous. He doesn't. But I'm saying it's very common, right? And so I want to say, okay, to the men, is there something that is drawing you, like in a threesome or something, right? Like I need to see my wife, if we do like kinks and fetishes and things like that, in a position with another man because it brings up something in me. Well, now both of us have something that we're working on because my wife is uncomfortable and I am encouraging her to do something that I think is sexually satisfying, and it's actually just...
Do Christians actually do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Christian-
because we don't know it, right? And so Christian, right, is our faith in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross. Yeah. And so then the sanctification that follows, if I'm 4 weeks in and I'm still doing this, and then I realize it takes watching Something Ain't Right, episode 11, to recognize
you're right. I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Now that I think of it, I've had some guys share with me that they do stuff like that, go to swingers events, and I'm like,
Christians?
Yeah, Christians.
Yeah.
Professed Christians. I mean, we'll never know who's Christian or who's not, fully, but it does get pretty deep like that.
And so there's no shame on either side of it. And I think that's what I want to, it's like, okay, it's not just a male issue and it's not just a female issue, but how do we handle that with grace? and say, you're just acting out of your wounds
Yeah.
that are then causing more wounds.
Now I had a question. So let's say like there's couples that they didn't do the premarital counseling, or they did do it, but now they find themselves in a relationship and they're having conflicts. How do you counsel them? Like, what are the beginner steps for when
Sexual
like
conflicts.
Yeah, sexual conflicts. Like when one spouse is holding sex, like I'm holding it hostage from you because I'm weaponizing it against you. Or let's say the other partner's like, well, I want you to do this, and this. It's almost like to the point of rape, kind of. Like, how do you counsel that, or what are like the beginning steps to bring healing to that?
Question.
White out. Because it's so heartbreaking, and also like I intentionally didn't read the questions really because I wanted to know like what is this, and so normally I would have like a better like, so this is just off the dome.
Freestyle.
Yeah. Do you want to lay a beat down and then I'll just like I'll go over it. I know you can beat monks, so you'll do it.
Well, manipulation and control
Yeah.
within a Christian marriage, within the ballpark of sex, it happens a lot.
Yeah, there, and for
That's
sure
very
after like infidelity, right? Like, are we or after like baby is born, 6-week checkup, you better be good to go, girl.
Jeez.
And so it's like, but hold on a
Lorenzo
minute.
said that on the last episode.
Taking shots at me.
It's only 6 weeks.
It's only 6 weeks. You
Boy
can
said
do it. I
6
believe in
weeks.
you. Thankfully, there's freedom in the marriage bed to do other things besides intercourse if you want to. But you don't have to because your hormones are crazy. There is a whole lot to be said about the heart posture of abstinence from sex in a relationship, right? Like, you can do that to devote yourself to prayer and for a period of time. So that means that we've had a conversation that says, we believe that this kind of needs to be off the table for us. I have yet to come across anybody who has ever done that. It's like, we're going to just abstain from sex. I'm not saying that it's not good or like, but I'm seeing it more in the manipulative kind of way. Like, that whole adage of like, oh, I have a headache, like not tonight.
Yeah.
And some research would show that an orgasm will help reduce your headache.
Oh.
I could see that.
Some would say that it might make it worse, right? And so I never want to be like fully prescriptive in those things. And so if you know that you are weaponizing man or woman, your body, because it's just your spouse's currency. Like, everybody has a currency. Maybe it's, you don't get the credit card. You don't get to...
Use the car. Or
whatever it is, right? There, we find all kinds of way to, like, I'm going to give you the silent treatment. We're going to stonewall. I'm going to, you know what? I'm not going to respond to your text messages. It is just that we have just figured out what our currency is. And so if I can leverage to prove a point, it is deeper than, hey, we're just not getting off tonight. It is...
And I think it's very common. I do think that's common. Just
Yes.
from talking to friends and talking to family members, and sometimes just the attitude, and I'm thinking, that ain't right. Something ain't right.
Something ain't right.
Yeah.
You don't hold that over that man's head
But
just
what if
because.
they just don't know that? Like,
If what?
when you have conversations with people and they just don't know that that's not the right thing to do. Do you
I think
address
that a
it?
lot of it is that.
Yeah.
Or that it's hurtful. They may not know the true impact of the hurt that it's causing because the other spouse who is so hurt has yet to be able to say, oh, this really just hurts my heart, not my testicles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think one of the big things that I see with a lot of guys is they have an expectation about something, right? I did the dishes, and so I expect you to do this.
Is that wrong? No, I'm just playing.
Is that wrong? This is your marriage.
It depends. Did you load the dishwasher right? It just depends, right? But that's the reality. And I think it's men and women, right? So if my wife comes home from a long day and she was expecting the house to be clean and spotless, right? And we had talked early in the morning, like, oh, it's going to be the night, like we're going to have a good night, like we're so excited. But then the house isn't the way that she thought it should have been because I was home for the day. And now she walks in, she's all in a tizzy, and all of a sudden it's like the whole night that we had originally talked about in the morning is off. It's not happening. It's off the table because her unspoken expectation is now held over me, and there is an end result there, right?
That's right.
But also on the flip side, guys are just as guilty of the same exact thing, right? They get up, they start doing things with this whole expectation of like, oh, I cleaned the house, I did this, so she's going to give me some tonight.
Yeah.
I think we have to drop those expectations and also improve our communication of the expectations we have.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it.
It seems so complicated to balance it.
It is.
Because wives submit to your husbands is one. Your body belongs to your husband.
Body is
His
not your
body,
own.
your body is not your own. Like, we got all these passages of scripture that are probably used out of context. But there obviously is a reason why the two of us become one flesh. That is a need. Like, I mean, I've known.
Can I disagree with you?
Yes.
I don't think sex is a need.
Okay, what is it?
I think it's a want. You know how many celibate people are alive? So it's not a need.
Are they really living? I'm just kidding.
Dang! That's
Only
awesome.
only the married
Right
ones.
here?
Only the married ones. The married celibates.
But
I feel like you can say that as a woman. I feel like women, and I've talked to my wife about this. So, like, every 3 or 4 days, there's something going on chemically in my body.
Well,
Thomas, would you?
Here's what I would say to that, right?
Come on.
So, Paul really kind of speaks to this as he's talking about marriage, right? So while it is better for us to remain single, right? But because we don't have that, we're not strong enough, right? We're weak in the flesh.
Yeah.
It is better to get married, right?
Yeah.
And so, to the point of need sex, right? I need sex. Well, Paul would argue with you on that.
Yeah.
Paul would argue with that because
Yeah.
he didn't need sex to be saved. He didn't need sex to pursue Jesus Christ, And so, like, when we think about worldly need versus spiritual need,
Yeah.
do we really need it?
Yeah.
If we're really walking in faith with Christ, we're pursuing Christ, and that's the focus, not the worldly benefits of it all. I would challenge the fact that you need it. We want it.
Yeah.
Good for us. We chose to go the married route, so now we get the benefits of it. But do I need
It's a
it?
gift that you can embrace if you're married, or stay single and stay celibate.
I guess it's like, do you need it? Like, are you gonna die? That's how you know. Do you need it like tomorrow?
As far as you're concerned, yes, I
But
will die. No.
So, like, let's spin it,
Let's
right?
just let my wife remain in the I will die.
3-day
I
response.
will die.
If my wife needs the dishes to be done before anything else can happen, needs the dishes to be done before anything else can happen,
Yeah.
which is kind of a true story.
It is.
If the dishes are dirty, nothing's happening.
That's a big
Wait,
one
are you
for
gonna
her.
die? You
Like-
need the dishes
But
to be
we
done.
will
Are you
not
gonna
have
die
sex.
if they're not
Like,
done?
we won't do anything. Like, do not pass go. Do not collect $100.
$200. I'm a
Well, at least you know what it is.
Baby.
Just
Yo.
go do the dang dishes.
Right. So,
You're
but
good.
here's a catch, right? So if I go do the dishes and nothing happens.
Oh yeah, now some come to the table moments.
Right. Like nothing has happened. Right. But if that's, again, it goes back to the communication point when you're getting ready to get married, and even in your marriage, because our relationship has changed in the 3 years that we've been married.
Yeah.
We've learned things about each other, and we've both been through individual things as we've been married.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, right? So if we go more than 3 days, well,
Yeah.
I'll say if she goes more than 3 days without having a great time, day 4 is bad for everybody.
Okay.
And so, I personally believe, what's bad for me, I personally believe, that there are, there are definitely physical benefits, like, and you're the expert, like, there are physical benefits, and as a result, if you are physically well, you are mentally well. If you're mentally well, you can be spiritually well. There are a lot of things that go into that. And so, to your point, you might function better, and it might be better for you, and you are operating at a higher bandwidth when you get to love your wife, and you feel loved by your wife.
Are men more likely? I always feel like she could probably go longer than I could without it. She might
Why
be.
don't we ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Sorry.
I'm sure I could without whatever the guys get chemically feeling within them. I'm always like, I wish I could just feel it just for a minute, just to kind of see
For
what.
the empathy?
No, yeah, to really just understand it.
Yeah.
Because clearly it's different. Like,
That's what I believe. Maybe
oh,
I'm
it's got
wrong.
to be different.
It's got to be
no,
different.
it's different.
for a guy.
It's different for sure.
Like,
100%. Because I could go.
Right.
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
For long times. So absolutely, I could go and be just fine.
But
But
she
does that
wants
mean
to.
it's better? I mean, it would definitely, I would be missing that. It's not like, I mean, I could go and it would be fine, no questions, but why? When I don't have to. Like, I do believe that it would be much easier physically on a woman than it would be on a man to go without sex.
And
for
I
sure.
agree. I agree. as a man, I feel like we have
Just
a
something.
stronger maybe it's the testosterone in our body
It is.
Something.
that causes us to, you know.
That is a part of it. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little greater percentage that we're a little more assertive to wanting sex than females, then I think in a marriage, I feel like my wife understands that.
Yeah,
So
but-
I don't even have to, like, just being transparent. She already knows. So she's not like, it's been 5 days. He could wait 6. She already knows day 3 and 4 to be thinking like, hey, babe.
She knows what time
like,
it is.
So what
time
I'm
you
hearing
coming
is your
home?
wife, like that is the way that Amanda loves you. Like this
Absolutely.
is a
He's
tremendous
different
act
dude.
of
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he really is not at his best.
Yeah.
You know, he's just not. He just does not operate the exact same.
I'll be
When
frustrated.
Like
I'll
if I'm
be
right after surgery,
tense.
or he will be very empathetic whenever I'm going through it physically, which
Yes.
I am a lot.
A lot.
He is very empathetic and always just so understanding, gentle. But that just makes me just want to be there for my man. You're not. So it's kind
Yeah.
of give and take.
Yeah, because what if day 3 and 4 for her, she's just hurt. My wife has neck and back
Like it's bad.
issues, like serious issues, and arthritis and
Bunch of- yeah, bunch of
yeah, scoliosis and stuff like that. And so I have to also consider that. And it doesn't matter how I feel and what I need at the moment or what I feel like I need. Like the way she feels is much more important. But I can easily back off because I know she's got me. She understands that.
Yeah.
And so as soon as she feels fine, which could be the next day, it could be the next day, I'm going to, you know,
Can I
I'm going to
expand
hold
on
her.
that?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that's what makes kind of the intimacy in marriage beautiful is because now we have a dialogue. Now I know Amanda's going to be out for 4 weeks because she had surgery. Is
Yeah.
what is on the table in our relationship if somebody is deployed, if somebody is pregnant,
Yeah.
if somebody has a diagnosis, are we allowed to incorporate something solo or in the presence of another? Do we take those photos and send it to, do we do things via technology, which watch your cloud? Like I'm not a proponent of sexting, but I am saying, right, like this opportunity to now have a dialogue and say, I am unable, I want to meet this need for you, babe. I do. Like I love you, but I can't.
Yeah.
And so for this season,
Yeah.
I have to tap out here, but if I need to be here, if we need to be in the bed, whatever.
Yes. That's real.
I think that's where grace gets to come into the relationship to say, let's meet this consensual, monogamous relationship where it's at and love each other well. And that's an ongoing dialogue because you may realize, or Thomas may realize, or whatever it is, like, I actually don't want you to do this apart from me. Babe, can you just sacrifice
Yeah.
this need for you for a season? I want you to know
Yeah.
my heart is for you. And I think that's a really honoring way to love one another, but also not have to be in this rigid box of, unless we're having an orgasm at the same time and he's on top, then everything else is just out the window. I don't mean that to
That's
be crass.
good. No,
I
that's
just,
real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier about both being in agreement, right, to take that fast, take that break. And I was thinking about your first trimester. You were super nauseous and not feeling great, and it wasn't on the table, right? And so it was a mutual agreed upon, and I had to be okay with it. Did I want it? Sure.
Yeah.
But did I want her to feel better? And did I
More.
want her, my love for her and my,
Yes.
absolutely, right? So are my needs more important or her needs more important?
Yeah.
Well, if we look at what Scripture says, I need to be thinking as a husband, her needs are more important than my needs.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that also gets lost in marriage, as we sometimes fall in this bucket of, well, I need, and that's not at all. We're supposed to die to ourselves as Christ died for the church. So if my wife's in a season, and the season is, I ain't getting any, well, should we work through that and get with a professional? Sure, definitely, right? That being said, I'm also to sacrifice for my wife. And
That's
if
real.
the sacrifice is giving it up.
That's real. That's such a healthy way to see marriage and sex. I just know so many people that, to me, are missing out. It's not even a self-serving thing for me and Amanda as a married couple. It's like, I know guys that have told me they slept on the couch and their wife hadn't been intimate with them in like 2 years. And I'm wondering, see, you know what I'm, like, see, that was just like, how do you do it? How do you do it? Are you a monk? Like, I don't understand that. For they're missing out, but that's when they need to come see you. I think they need to do something about that. That
please
just
don't
seems
all
like
come to me.
no, you know what I mean. Go see a Christian sex therapist. But it is all I want to when I think about people watching this, it should be a flag of some sort that they're not enjoying sexual
1000%.
intimacy as a
1000%.
married couple, right?
Yeah, why are you not creating an environment of safety and in one another where you can say, because if, and I'll go stereotypical here, headache, nope, not tonight, I'm mad at you, you didn't do the drop off, whatever. It can often for men feel like a personal rejection. There's something in me that's rejected. It's not the sex, it's me as in my personhood. And so same for a wife. Oh, yes, in manhood.
She said personhood. Like that would be a man. A man would take that like,
yeah. But also a woman, right? Where is there a rejection? What about my body? Is it my stretch marks? Is it my mom boobs? Is it my whatever? What about me as I'm aging? Is no longer like these beautiful women with their lashes and their tummy tucks.
Men are having to deal with on their social media and
Yeah.
access to porn and all that. They're having to their wives are having to compete with that.
It's not even like you don't have to seek out porn. You just walk outside.
Yeah, you walk outside the billboard.
Our kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all and that and right, like modest is hottest. Well, then what is modesty? And I know we've already covered that, right? But like somebody may have a problem with my romper right now. I feel perfectly fine in the fact that I have on a short romper. My husband's fine with whatever. But when I can't come to my husband and say, as a woman, I am struggling with porn. I am struggling because Channing Tatum looks so good. Michael B. Jordan looks so good. Hello. Or my pastor, the youth group, because like a man that's in a like I imagine you, and I'm not trying to take over here, but right, like there may be women that flock themselves at Train 9 online and in person.
They probably do. I don't know about flock themselves, but I'm sure. Flock like I'm thinking flock like her.
Yeah. But they may.
But I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure
He's a leader. The worship leader. Hello.
Sweet as can be.
Yes.
Fun.
And like, but here's Amanda.
Yeah.
We're holding it down at home like a G. This man could not do what he does without this woman. Like I am fully convinced of that.
Amen.
That's not a dig at you, but I'm just saying.
Amen.
Like,
Amen. For
and,
sure.
and so we have to say, okay, I am going to come to you and say there is this person at work that I just or if it's not my husband because he's like I don't want to know that, but is there a woman in your life that you're telling this to? Jessica, I got to tell you, this guy, he's just so hot, and he's always like, he's so smart and he makes me laugh.
So you're saying that you would say that to Thomas? Because I couldn't imagine if my wife told me that, how I would feel.
I would absolutely tell Thomas. Would you want to know?
I've never had her tell me that.
Would you want to be the person, or would you want me to tell Jess and Amanda?
I think you should tell Jess and Amanda.
Well, I think
Right?
you should tell your husband.
I will say, having gone through
We did a little bit. Yeah.
my last marriage, ended with an affair, right? And the pain that comes from that, and like the heartache and the frustration, for me personally, I want to be able to make the decision whether or not that's not a you decision anymore. That's a we decision. You have stepped out of the boundaries of our covenant. You made that decision, but it is still we.
I'm not saying in an infidelity. Like if I'm super attracted to if I want to come here because I want to see White out all the time, you would want to know
why. I'd be like, well,
I think you're great.
Well,
but you could you would want to know.
I'd be like, okay, well, why? Like, what's it?
I can't imagine going to and being like, LL Cool J is really hot. I want to see him on TV. I think he's hot. I mean, he's pretty hot. But I can't.
If he hot, you wouldn't tell Trey?
I mean, I'm not scared to. I absolutely, if he asked me, hey, what's about this dude? But I mean, just going up to him and just offering, like, hey, babe, just by the way,
out of the blue,
the guy that works at Home Depot is kind of cute. I mean, but I don't think of him. I don't see guys that I think of like that ever. I mean, there's some that are really super cute. But I don't see
so
them where I feel like my heart feels some kind of way where I need to confess it, like, at all.
But what I'm learning is that everybody's different.
Yeah,
so
100%.
That may be permissible, beneficial to your marriage. Maybe in ours, we just don't go there.
And that's the answer. Yeah, 100%. But if we don't know, but if I don't give Thomas the opportunity to say, hey, babe, like, thank you for telling me, but I don't want to hear this stuff, but I trust that Amanda and Josemary and that Jessica, like, they've got they care about this.
Yeah.
And so if, man, you're seeking out this guy a lot, I'm going to need you to widen the circle.
So
Yeah,
what was the
accountability.
point of you saying that you would even go to him about that?
I don't remember.
As it, well, no.
Transparency.
I love the transparency
Accountability.
because
Oh, yeah, I
I'm
think
like
that's
that
great.
too.
If that's good for their marriage.
And
I think
our
it's great.
thing is like we have each other. Well, I actually don't remember Thomas's phone password, but like very early on, we were like, if we
We all know.
Wow, you just told the world.
if we ever get to a point where it's like I'm questioning this, there is something wrong and we need to be in counseling immediately. That is kind of like our threshold. If I need to look at your phone or I need to be whatever, that means I'm not trusting what this man is saying to me. And so I don't need to be snooping. There's a trust issue that there is something in Thomas.
And that's okay. That's
yeah,
okay.
everybody has a thing. But I think that for each person, right, as long as you are honoring, because now it's that 1% of the corner of the blanket. Again, like I said in our last thing, our secrets keep us sick. So if
Okay.
thing that you shouldn't, that
That's
you
why
don't
you
want to
would
tell,
confess.
that's why it's like, this is the thing that this
Our
man needs to
secrets
know.
keep us sick.
Yeah.
So well, you saying that kind of brings it down to layman's terms to say that's why I would tell my husband, hey, there's this guy at my job that's
Yeah.
really hot and kind of pressing on me, and then he would.
Yeah. And I like it. Like
Yeah.
he is engaging me, because if Thomas is working, like, praise the Lord for the men that are like on the grind, busted their butts, or they're working out of town, or they're on the rig. And this person, the proximity to them, I'm working together, and all of a sudden, oh, there's these attributes in them. That is a slow fade from, hey, we're just friends, to now we're not in the group chat, and now we're in the off chat, and it's just us, or we like make a point, like it's a slow fade. And people that sit in my offices who have had affairs or entertaining affairs or what have you, they never imagined they'd be there. Nobody, I don't know anybody that wanted truly when they were, well, most often we're not seeking out, especially the pain that causes.
Yeah.
And so there's a grace and a compassion to people who have found themselves in that position, an emotional affair, a physical affair, a financial affair, a blah, 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 blah. So
So you mentioned trust, and I heard trust and infidelity, friendships, coworkers. Where is your boundaries of trust? Like, how do you trust your spouse? Are they allowed to have friends, opposite sex friends?
I want this
I think
answer.
I think I'm pretty cool. And I'll tell him every once in a while, you know that you are pretty fortunate. Two things. I trust Trey, and it might look to the world, it might look crazy because of all the things and all the places and all the people that he's around all the time. I have zero insecurity in my heart or distrust. I just don't. I don't. I think, it'll make me cry, but I trust him as a man fully, and he's never given me a reason at all
I love
that for me not to trust him. But also within myself, I've been a lot of things, and I've been, done a lot of things, but I've never been jealous or insecure or,
Needy.
I just have never,
Yeah.
no, I'm not needy. I don't know. It's just not in my heart. And I get that most people I would not recommend any marriages to just be like balls to the wall, go do, whatever. And I'm never going to question. I'm never going to wonder. I think people should be trust but verify sometimes in marriages.
Yeah.
I think, with time, you grow, you can trust your spouse more and more, even if you're courting. Some of those things just come with time. But if you're marrying, if right from the jump you are feeling insecure or jealous or like you need to be wondering and be stalking people's social media, wondering where's my man, all that kind of crazy stuff, like then that's not the person for you, or it's just not time.
Why did that make you emotional?
Just because it just does, because I don't know anybody just like him, and I think he's fortunate, but I am too.
Yeah.
And for him to be the places that he's been and go to the places, all the things that make Trey 9, for me to be able to say that I've never, ever, ever heard his name questioned, that I've never heard of nothing on his integrity. I just haven't, as a person, as a fellow Houstonian, or as my spouse. It's just not part of it. I mean, I just don't have to worry about it. I know within me that I do not have to worry about it. It's never crossed my mind. I don't question it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's been a few little heifers here and there. Or people that I just kind of, I'm like, you know what? She ain't no good. Like, she ain't no good, or just something ain't right.
And he trusts that.
And something
Yeah.
ain't right, yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll just be like, hey, just so you know.
Yeah.
You voice that to him.
Yeah.
And I cut and I cut
Yeah,
him
he'll
off.
That
listen.
part.
I cut him off.
Yeah,
That's
he'll
good.
listen. And it's not often, but there's been a few little
Yeah.
times where I just was like,
Watch that one.
yeah, I think you need to be careful, right?
Yeah.
With this one. Yeah, and he does. And it's like not an issue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's what I wish for every marriage. For every marriage I do, I just love. It's very comforting, and I think it shows my boys a lot. My boys, you know, our boys have had issues here and there, different struggles. But one thing is, I could never, like my son, who's 15 years old, he's been with his girlfriend almost 3 years. You know, they're young, but I mean, I can't imagine my kids like having a girlfriend and then be hollering at these other girls on the side. Like I just can't even see it. I think that they've seen what a healthy marriage looks like without all the strife and jealousy and all that stuff in the background. I'm very grateful for it.
Jealousy would
Oh,
crush intimacy, wouldn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, and then that reveals something in you. So if there's somebody that is, I'm trying to think like what type of like person would trigger me, but like what is that? Where's that wound in me that I need to address that I'm then projecting onto Thomas because he hasn't done what other people have. And to your point, like your marriage is the greatest example of a marriage that your kids will see.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
right.
what you're modeling for them, like what so I call them my OG3, like my older 3, and then we have a 2-year-old. And so I was married for about 12 years. And so the marriage that my older ones saw versus the marriage that they're seeing now, night and day. And so it devastates me because I'm like, oh, I thought that I was doing the right thing by not being divorced, but we were just undivorced roommates.
Yeah.
And so I'm not getting into like the covenant stuff, but it's like, what are you doing? Where are you going to put in the work to say, okay, I am the problem in this marriage, and I am willing to do whatever it takes to take these kids and show them, hey, mom and dad, like we haven't been sharing the same room, and we want to let you know, like we are working on that.
Yeah.
And there's an age appropriate way to disclose that. We're not trauma dumping, we're not parentifying our children, but where is it in this unity that Caden will see, oh, like my parents kiss, or they dance in the kitchen, or they fight. We argue, for sure, one of us more than the other. I argue at Thomas. And so it's just a beautiful reminder to say it goes so much beyond just the two people there. All right.
Were you going to say something about that before
Oh, my bad.
he asked that question?
No, it's okay. Kind of going like all centers around comfort in the marriage and communication in the marriage. And one thing that keeps on kind of burn a hole in my head, going back to, I think guys, let's say I work 60 hours, right? I'm earning the money for my family, right? I expect when I come home I should get.
Should a wife submit to your every
So-
burning sexual desire?
Got it.
Let's stare him
That's
in
the
the eyes.
question.
Yeah.
So like short answer is no. You know, just like I shouldn't completely sacrifice myself to the point of losing myself, right? And trying to support my wife. You know, but let's say I'm working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a week. I come home with a set expectation of like, I'm earning the bills, I'm working hard, so my wife should care for me.
She should take care of me.
She
and
should
that-
take
yeah.
care of me. I need mine. I'm going to get it because I have been given
I
her
earned
all of
it.
these things. And that's a common mindset amongst a lot of men.
Okay,
From my experience, common mindset of
and not good.
I'm not good. It's not good. I've been earning. I've been doing.
Wouldn't it be better if my wife was like, I'm so appreciative of him out there grinding that I want
Correct.
to have this time with him?
And I think that's the issue in a lot of marriages today, right? You have two individuals that almost sometimes stay individuals, doing their individual thing, and then at some point in time, they're supposed to come together and be a team and say, hey, I see you individually doing, hey, you're individually doing, I guess we should like appreciate each other for that. We're in a, from marriage, you're one, you are one, right? So while I am out working, you two are in a sense out working, and while you are at home taking care of the kids and I am in a sense like taking care of the kids. So like, guys, you come home from a long day, your job's not done, right? Like love on your wife.
Yeah.
Love on your wife.
Yeah.
Don't expect love from her. Again, expectation versus serving, right? what can you do to get your wife in a place where she is feeling loved and supported and great? It's a two-way street. Right?
Don't you?
Yeah.
I think that I did this, so you give me this, and like our marriage don't even flow that way. It's
transactional.
yeah, it's not transact. I know that isn't how it should be. You just figure each other out over time,
Yeah.
right?
There's love languages.
There's
and
love
so,
languages, yeah.
Yeah.
You figure out what your spouse, what's most important or what's valued by your spouse the most. So I don't need him to come home and bring me some gift he bought me, some fancy whatever that he bought me, but him doing stuff around the house just randomly, just to do it is like, oh, I'll be like, bro, you couldn't have bought me nothing that meant more than that.
Yeah. But she doesn't. But if I didn't do it, she's
yeah.
not gonna punish me
No, never.
without giving me sex. Like
No, I would never.
it's like I'm thinking about her all the time. I ain't always gonna get it right. I'm not always gonna do what she was hoping I would do. I'm not always gonna say
For
it
sure.
the way she wanted me to say it. Right?
For sure.
Messed that up plenty of
For
times.
sure.
Right? But because she doesn't punish me in that way, we just align.
That's
right?
cruel. Yeah, like
To me, it is cruel. If it was like, well, I want the dishes done, you didn't do the dishes, and so you already know what's coming.
To me, it is too.
To me, we should be in a flow where it's like, I didn't, but you got me. She's still already thinking about it. I don't even got to say nothing because she knows it's about. I almost feel like we're on a schedule that really works.
I'm not
You know?
a sex therapist, but I would say, ladies, don't hold sex over your man's head.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's just
Yeah.
not.
That's a soundbite right there.
It's
that
not
just
healthy.
gets-
It's just not healthy. I don't understand how it could help.
It's control. It's a form of control.
Yeah.
It can be a form of control.
Absolutely.
I think it goes back to like
Which we learned
I clear my
somewhere.
throat, guys. I'm sorry, but I think it goes back to like what I hear is like sex versus intimacy, where sex is kind of more like it's
Yeah,
kind of
transactional.
like transactional. You
Yeah.
gotta do it on the
Yeah.
spot. You gotta
Yeah.
force it, kind of. Because I've heard of relationships like couples where my wife has told me she's talked to girls where it's like, man, they feel like the husband's raping them, kind of. Like I don't want to do this, but he's kind of forcing me to do it, and I got to do it. You know?
And then guess what?
Why?
Then the wife wants to do it less and less.
Yeah.
So then the husband is going to seem like he's more and more. It's just.
So why would a wife feel that way?
And how do
Is
we
it
say
because the man is really like being super aggressive, or is it because that's his mentality of what sex is like? Because maybe he's been involved in too much other stuff. But why would a wife feel like her husband is raping her and it be uncomfortable?
I could think of a couple scenarios.
Well, I just from a guy's perspective, real quick on this is just, if you are a guy and you are going in it just for yourself, you're not learning what your wife wants and what your wife appreciates
Okay.
in the bed and those types of things, right?
Makes sense.
Then she's not going to want it, right? If you're only in it for you and you're not in it for her too,
Yeah, because there's pleasure for both.
bingo.
So you need to discuss that. Is that true? You should be discussing, hey, this works for me and helps me climax. This works for me. Like, is that healthy in a relationship? Should couples be
I
doing
hope
that?
so
Okay.
because that's what.
No, you
we
got to remember,
talk
we got
about a lot.
1-year couples, and then you
Yeah.
got OGs like us.
But if the church hasn't talked about the fact, like if we're afraid of our bodies, if we don't even know like where things are, where's the clitoris?
Yeah,
And we're
Yeah.
supposed to be pure,
yeah.
but man, that wedding night, we
Yeah.
better be ready to go. It better be mutually beneficial.
A certain amount of time length.
Yeah, and it's probably very quick if
Yeah.
it's your first,
Yeah.
half a dozen times, however long. And then that's a whole other thing for like men. Like, am I not erect soon enough? Am I not big enough? Am I not
Yeah.
lasting long enough? Like all of these things in their head because they get images too.
Who were you with before? Did they do it better? Like all the things men would.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you should talk to each other about what pleases one another,
Yeah.
right? So that way sex is enjoyable. And that's something that probably most Christians don't do because you never really hear that being talked about.
Yeah, and it's kind of in a passive kind of way, like, oh, my man did whatever, can you believe, what have you? And so being able to have a conversation and recognize that, like, foreplay is so much more than the time we're in our room with our clothes off. Like, what happens prior to ever getting into the bedroom
Yeah.
is going to set a lot of success. So if I can't even talk to you about the fact that I I overspent by $100 at Target, and you come off the rails at me, or you're screaming at the kids. How am I supposed to tell you when you do this thing sexually, it reminds me of this past trauma, or I just don't like it,
Right.
or I used to like it, but I don't like it
That's
anymore,
good.
or now I need, perimenopause has hit, and now I need some lubricant to help my hormone changes in my body. It's not you. I love you. You're doing a great job, but I need this. And being able to not take it personally is a really valuable first place to start. But if I can't even tell you that I don't love the dinner that you made because the seasoning was just absent, I'm gonna feel a little less comfortable talking to you.
I'm sure, uncomfortable. I think it's uncomfortable. Even couples who've been married for a long time, I think that there's certain things that are just going to be uncomfortable, but they need to be said.
On the note of couples who want to, Christian couples, right? We'll keep it there.
Christian married couples.
Christian married couples, yes, who want to spice up their sex life, but they may wonder if the Bible is against some things. Like, is the Bible against sex toys? Is the Bible against oral sex? Is the Bible against other
Bible
types of
against
sex? I won't go
nudes.
there. I won't say that. Just
Sending
in case-
nudes.
The Bible against sending nudes.
Sending nudes, yeah.
To your spouse.
Yeah.
Is the Bible against sending nudes to your spouse? Is all the different things, is it like, where do you land on the things couples in marriage cannot do? I'd imagine this would have a differing opinion depending on the couple, because maybe some things, for some is like, yeah, the other one's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you'd ask me to do that, you know? So where do you land on that as a licensed Christian sex therapist?
I'm under consultation. Thank you very much. I believe that there is so much more freedom than we give ourselves credit for in the faith when it comes to sex. If this is the only person that I can express my fun and my curiosity with for the rest of my life, as my skin changes and things drop, then at some point we get a chance to play.
Yeah.
And so there may be like a lubricant need out of necessity because of hormonal changes, because of just how our bodies are as we age. And again, like I mentioned earlier, that has nothing to, we don't use that to weaponize and shame. Oh, well, you've got a dad bod now, and so your parts are different, and so it's just not doing anything for me. We're never gonna shame somebody for their
Jeez,
body and
that
how
is-
things go. Or let's say a woman is 9 months pregnant and she can't do something sexually like she used to. So we might add in a vibrator for clitoral stimulation that accompanies the bedroom, but is not a substitute for the fact that her husband is not there. Now, there's a risk sometimes in using toys and things like that because maybe we have clitoral desensitization from some of that. And so are we now relying on the vibrator for orgasm? That might be an entirely different conversation with a professional. But they can certainly enhance. I just refer to them as like marital accompaniments. It's like I'll have the side of fries. Like the burger is great, but today I'm feeling truffle fries, and tomorrow it might be cheese fries,
And a milkshake.
and maybe Thomas really likes bacon cheese fries, but I'm not. Maybe I want truffle today, and so we do both. And so having this conversation, because I know at our base, this man is like my ride or die, and so anything that he would ask me to do in our bedroom is not coming from a place of demand and self-serving. It's like, hey, let's explore. And so that's where you get to have those frequent conversations of, am I now masturbating alone at home during the day? Because it's a stress reliever and my husband's not there and I'm not attracted to him anymore because I'm thinking about, Chad from work. What is Chad doing? I wonder what that is like. And so that is where those seeds.
That's why you need to do something else with your husband, which may involve these other things.
yeah,
Because you don't want that to happen.
Sure.
You don't want them to go outside the marriage. So talk about the things within the marriage.
Yeah.
Right?
And
because the danger, Christians could be watching going, oh my God, I can't believe she said, yeah, toys would be okay. Well, maybe not for everybody.
But not for
It
everybody,
may not
for
be beneficial for
sure.
everybody. But in a situation where you're having to try things in order to bring the satisfaction to this marriage, this union, you're saying that may be the case.
Yeah, maybe for sure. And like new positions, like they have like, what do we want to do? We want to, or like, so like sometimes it's like okay to have just like good enough sex.
Yeah.
Like we have like when you get to a certain point in marriage, it's like, we know we got to have sex before date night because we're trying to eat and go home and go to bed.
That's great. Okay.
Like, and so this comes after trial and error to be like, if this is going to happen, like, we got to do it at 4 because at 10, like, bras off, I'm going to bed. Do not touch me.
That's
I
wild.
want to eat. And so we know that. And so as we change.
We're like opposite.
Oh,
We're like,
he's like-
when all the kids are going to sleep, you know.
Yeah, but
and everything-
stage of life, though, right?
Yeah,
when
that's
they're
right.
little, it's like, if you touch me because I'm breastfeeding, like, you might not be here tomorrow. Because these aren't sexual anymore, or now they're leaking and nobody tells you, hey, your breasts might leak whenever you become aroused after you've had a baby. And so you might want to wear some sort of those breast pads to not go all over the place. And so
This is a lot. I can imagine people who don't get educated on this, just trying to figure it out from hood knowledge or
Yeah,
hip hop
it's-
knowledge
it's
or man in the
jarring.
streets. This is how we do this, you know,
Yes,
like
it's
she should
so
do.
different.
And I'm like, but it's an intelligent conversation about a real issue. I hope people can maturely watch this and handle it, but it is what it is. We need to have it because
Or
something
like-
ain't right that we don't have it.
or erectile dysfunction. Like, let's talk about diabetes, right? Or high blood pressure, and things aren't working as well, or you're stressed out.
Or
And
as
so
you get older, your hormones aren't functioning the same.
absolutely. So wherever you are in your stage of life, just those things are going to show up differently, and that doesn't mean
Yeah, and in every marriage they'll be different.
100%. What you got, Boo?
I think one of the big pieces that we keep talking about is communication, though, right?
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so like sex stores, they exist, right? You know, I'm not going to name them because they didn't give us a sponsorship, but
Yeah.
you know, like that they exist, right? You know, and you have people that would be absolutely terrified and embarrassed to walk in them, and then you'd have me who doesn't care.
Yeah.
Right, you know, because I'm going in there with the thought of what can I what can I do to support this even more in the confines of like how do I love my wife well,
Yeah.
right? And it doesn't necessarily mean I got to buy something or I got to get something,
Right.
you know. But is there a way where I can show up better then, or I can't really show up right now because I'm dealing with this thing, or like in our very first week of marriage.
That's selfless.
Well, I mean,
Very selfless.
you know, in our very first week of marriage, you know, we got married, had wedding night, and it was awesome. Like it was awesome. Like
It was beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, best sex I had ever had in my life up to that point. Right?
Praise God.
You know, it really was. I mean, it was amazing. And you know, we then get home. We had one night before we then back into real life, and we were living in an apartment.
We didn't live together before we were married.
Yep. So living in an apartment. I've no kids. Now I have 3 stepkids, you know, and it's our first night in our apartment as a married couple. And I'm thinking, yeah, here we go. And at like 11 o'clock, there's a knock on the door. And I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, do we continue? Like, what do we do here? I had no clue how to function in that environment. And so we did, like, it all paused and stopped. I had like the worst anxiety around sex for like the next week, or like the worst. Like I was in a depressed, like very bad spot because I'm like,
Wow.
I like it because like it wouldn't work. Like no matter what we did,
Sure.
you know. And so it took going to the doctor, conversations. It took like therapy.
You were willing to pursue whatever it took to get healthy. You weren't about to go do nothing outside the marriage.
Well, because you know, and I'll let you speak to this, but like in that time too, there was a subconscious thought from her part of like, well, is it me, or like, is it something that I'm doing? Because I wasn't really willing to share the fact, like, I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to like, oh my gosh, your kids are causing anxiety to me, and I can't perform in the bedroom.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and when we finally
Jeez,
bridged
that's
that
sad.
How
gap,
did y'all finally get there?
we went to the doctor, and I like to be honest with my doctors. And so being able to tell a third party and not look, because we were brand new married.
Yeah, now you could
that would've been
tell.
hard.
So
each
I
other,
told the doctor, and she got to listen to it, you know. And afterwards, she was like, I wish you would have just told me that, because I'm thinking the whole time it's me.
And maybe that's the case for most couples, and maybe from this show they'll know.
Yes,
maybe
yes,
we need to have a
open
conversation,
up,
babe.
yes, have-
Hopefully they'll open up. Yeah.
Yes,
Can
definitely.
I add one thing
Yeah.
about the conversation piece? If you don't know, then you can't converse, right? So there is a level of self-awareness that you have to have before you can even be able to say, hey, I felt jealous here. And so that's where that individual work really matters, to be able to say, oh, I didn't even recognize that I felt this way. And so I can't communicate what I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that part, I think, prefaces the communication piece, and so that's kind of the foundation. I just wanted to clarify that. So go ahead.
No, I agree. I think that I can see how that would have been really hard to discuss, but that's why communication is key.
I think it's also important to note, if you start something, you can stop something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you both agree, you're excited, we're going to try this new thing, whatever it is, right? And at any point in time, just because you're married doesn't mean it has to continue.
Are you talking like consent matters?
Consent does matter in the marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so we bought this new toy, we're both excited, like and all of a sudden you get into it, and one of you's like, nope. Whoever, it's not like, well, we bought it anyway, we're like, suck it up.
Yeah.
We got to do it.
It's $40. Gotta use it.
It's true.
Our Chick-fil-A
Can't return it.
No returns.
No returns.
Oh my gosh!
Nah,
Final sale.
Right. So, a question talking about this topic, like for couples that have already been like with years of like dysfunction in sex and shame and stuff, and having problems in the marriage, like how do they restore that intimacy? Or what steps can they take? Like if they're listening right now, what steps can they take to start restoring that?
And you just kind of gave them one.
Yeah.
But
addressing like those medical issues, those anxieties and things like that. Do you have like a thought on that?
Ooh, I feel like that is for the sex therapist. Like for years and years they've been going through. Like I can't imagine years of dysfunction in your marriage, sexually frustrated, and then I would think definitely professionals. I would think seriously, I would think that would be something to maybe talk to a professional about how to even, I don't know, how to even go from there.
she's never had to experience that, so.
No, because she has. That woman is
couples-
satisfied.
Yes, we
Um,
are both satisfied.
There is. Y'all are a mess.
Yes.
When you have, it's like the symptom of the marriage problem is the lack of sex. So it is deeper.
If that's the only
Than
problem.
it is deeper than that, and so there isn't a certain number of times a week you need to be having sex, or a certain number of times a month, like that's like for what's normal. But acknowledging the fact that like something ain't right about this marriage, I'm not quite sure I don't have language for it yet, but I'm willing to talk to somebody about what that might be, like a tangible step. There's something called a feelings wheel, and I actually
A feelings wheel.
feelings wheel.
Okay.
And I made a sexuality feelings wheel, like my own intellectual property. I'll give it to you if you want it. Like if you want to
I'll
include
put
it in
it
here,
on the
somebody
screen.
can. And so when I don't recognize that this feeling that I have in me is desire, and I've been shamed my whole life into this, well, I don't know how to progress into other phases of desiring sex. And so if your first tangible step is recognizing like how you feel and why. It's more than happy, sad, angry.
Yeah.
Am I feeling jealous? Am I feeling insecure? Am I feeling excited? Am I feeling pursued? Am I feeling sexy? And if women have been told, oh, don't be too sexy. Well, but I want to be sexy for my husband. And is that wrong? Because my church or my family or my culture has told me, well, you can't do that because that's like what insert expletive here does. And I don't want to be that. So now I'm this muzzled little, like preacher's child or preacher's kids.
Yeah, PK.
Yeah. You go out and it's like I go to college and I'm just like crazy.
Yeah.
And so in it's almost like the inverse of that. If I've always been taught and I can't, man, we're living in such like limited freedom of what the Lord has allowed us to do. Mm-hmm. And so if our shame is keeping us stuck, if I've been really promiscuous or I'm a new believer and I'm just coming out of a life in the streets or in sex work or in college where it's just kind of maybe a little more normalized, addressing what I believe about myself sexually and what I've done or what's been done to me, I think that's a beautiful first foundation that you can do. And even just looking, you can even Google it. What am I experiencing? Where is that in my body? We talk about it a lot in therapy. Like, how do you feel? Where is that in your body? But there's something to that. There's a book called The Body Keeps a Score. That's kind of heady. But equipping yourself and educating yourself on the emotions that underlie that. And then don't let anybody here tell you what the Bible says about sex. Like you do that work on your own. I can sit here and tell you I believe that there might be a part of Song of Solomon that says blow on her garden. It talks about female oral sex, not about male oral sex. So then I would say I believe that the Bible is giving permission for women to receive oral sex from their husbands. I'm I'm so excited for this part now. Okay, hold on. I have to do this. Hi. The clitoris has no reproductive function, and it has twice as many nerve endings as the head of a penis. So if we want to say that the Lord doesn't care about female sexual pleasure, that is absolutely untrue. And so for any woman who has been made to feel or believe that there's something wrong with her body, that it is only there for the purpose of her husband's orgasm, that's categorically false. You go, you do what you need to do to feel beautiful and confident in your body, because you were fearfully and wonderfully made.
I would agree.
Amen.
I would agree.
Amen.
I'll back that as a man.
You are fearful.
I would agree.
So the important thing for
Follow
me to
that up.
follow up with that statement
Good luck.
is ladies communicate. Communicate, right? I'm a guy. I don't know your body as well as you do. And you might not even know your body that well, but you know what? There are a lot of guys out there, Trace and I point earlier. We think we got it right earlier, so we still got it right today.
Today, yeah.
Well, you're different. And so we don't have it right now, and we don't know what's right unless you say, I like that, I don't like that, or
That's
to the
good.
left, to the right, or
Yeah.
like, and I think that's the thing that, there's a big gap there, because guys go in thinking like, man, I'm the champ at this.
Yeah.
Because it worked.
Because it worked with
wor-
old
it
girl
worked in
down the
past,
street.
and so they go in like, super confident, and then all of a sudden, like,
That ain't it.
a good time for them, and they're looking like, well, what's wrong? This didn't work. What happened? And then, now you're not turning around and saying, hey, well, I didn't like that, right? Instead you just kind of tolerate it, or you fake it till you make it. And now you've got this really unhealthy balance.
Should you fake an orgasm?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think so?
No, 1,000%.
Should you fake an orgasm?
I don't think so.
I
I don't
shouldn't
think
fake
so.
anything.
That's lying.
I would rather talk about how to have a real one before you're faking one.
You said you were.
That would.
I don't think so. Should it be a habit or should it become something that's, common? No, that's no.
Because then you're lying.
I mean, because then
it's a lie.
That's
He's gonna think he's the man,
And then
and he really ain't the man.
and then
You
that's
don't
just
think
only going to
King
get
Kong-
worse. It's going to get no.
Yeah.
It goes
I
back
agree.
to the bad communication. Like, this worked.
Absolutely.
It definitely worked. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And at some point, you're going to
Yeah,
get
those
tired of faking it until you
expectations.
make it. And all of a sudden, like, it's broken. Something's not happening.
Yeah.
And
That's
so-
one way affairs start. It's one
Yeah.
way people go outside of the marriage. It's a lot of that in Christian marriages. The stats are pretty alarming, and we want to be married, stay married. We want to have the best health and communication, affection, sex life, parenting, all that. And that's what we ultimately aim for. That's why we're having conversations like this, is so that people can get to a place of health in every area. Because we know early on in marriage, those first 5 years, you're still learning each other rather in many different areas. We don't argue about the things we argued about in year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, at this point, it's like, I know what she's going to do. She knows what I'm going to do. Yeah, outside of sex, everything else, just you got to hang in there and fight for it. But what the information that I feel is pretty heavy, but that we're sharing, can really help some people to restore and to answer your question, to get back to, we're going to fight for this. We're going to seek health. It's dysfunctional. It's chaotic, but this is who I married. And I need to lay down my life for this person. I need to be selfless. I need to give and stop looking at what I can take. And if we're both giving, we're going to be fulfilled. And where the areas that it's not happening, because I don't know what an 80-year-old Amanda's going to be like. She don't know what an 80-year-old Trey's going to be like. So that's new problems that come. And stop shaming that. Like, let's just have people like you and counselors, and let's use those who are trained in these areas to intervene. And don't be ashamed of it, and don't be afraid of it. Even having a Thomas in your life. Thomas needs a Trey in his life. So I can be like, oh, you had that problem, bro? That's normal. Let me tell you what I did.
Yeah.
Like, men
The young
aren't
bucks.
doing that.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to say to me is, me and my wife, it ain't really working for her, bro. Because you feel like, nah, I can't do that, man. I'm a man. No, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hey, man, it could be as simple as, testosterone goes down as you get older. Bro, let me tell you what you need to do. Go to your doctor, have them check your testosterone level. Simple stuff.
The number one thing
Right?
I think, the number one theme is communication.
Yeah.
Everything revolves around being able to communicate with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
You know,
I agree.
One thing to the question that you brought up, you know, I heard this advice from a 79-year-old. They had been married 60 years. You know, and the thing that he said is every day he gets up, he looks at his wife, and he reminds himself that in the very beginning, he did everything he could to get her. And so, you know, when he wakes up every day, he puts himself in this frame of mind of, you know, somebody's going to come after my wife today. So what do I got to do to make sure that I keep getting her? You know,
That's awesome.
And he said, always be dating. Always be dating your wife. Always be dating your spouse.
Yeah.
So maybe go back on your first date.
So just me sitting here absorbing everything, I just want to say that y'all have given some great advice. I know y'all have been married a couple years. You've been a few years, and y'all have been 15 years strong. And I admire all your advice. And I've just listening, I'm like, I've never heard this in a church environment. I've never heard these conversations being in church for lots of years. So I appreciate it. And what I hear, my takeaways are communication is key, because that's everybody kept going back to communication. And just two servant hearts coming together, keeping God in the center of it all. So thanks, guys.
And being single, we want people to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think none of us can say we've covered everything there is to cover. And maybe you heard something, you're like, nah, that ain't working for me. That ain't true. I tried that. And that's the way it is, right? Because to each his own, but there are some things that we hope single people and married people can benefit from. We do believe it's important. And I think as we close, and y'all think about closing comments, things that you might want to say that we didn't get to talk about. If there is something on your heart, I believe it's that important. And with all the men I talk to that open up about sex, I feel like we as the church, we're not bashing the church by saying they ain't covering it, because some are, right? Some have whole series on this stuff. But as a whole, it is something that pastors, I think, might avoid. But maybe after watching the show, they're like, well, if they can open up like that, we can open up. And our desire is to help the body. We want the body to be healthy. And so if this becomes a model for some, then maybe that can change. I think it needs to change. I think we do need to be more transparent.
We'll come
about
talk
it.
at your church.
Yeah, absolutely. So any closing thoughts y'all feel like, hey, man, there's one thing I've been wanting to say, or any advice to close it out that you would say about the importance of a healthy sex life in your marriage?
I would say don't be shy. Like, switch it up a little bit. You know, just take those, not risks, but just don't be scared to try something. And because you could be holding back and it could be something that's just absolutely amazing. Just don't be shy in the bedroom. I think it's important.
I think for me, I would say it's not all about the sex, right? Like, we're talking a lot about sex, but in your marriage, there are so many other components of marriage that if not done right, well, then the sex is the least of your worries, right? And there are a lot of marriages out there that are filled with sex, but not filled with intimacy, not filled with commitment, not filled with love, not filled with so many other things. But they're having sex. Things must be good. You know, and I think, you know, it's so easy. Oh, well, we had sex today, so like we're okay, we're good. We had sex. Well, like we're not good. You know, and I think that's for me, going back to, you know, a healthy marriage, being able as a guy to like own all of it. Going back to what is the real definition of husband? What is the real definition of showing up for your wife in that servant role? And how do I be a servant, not only, you know, as a money maker for the family, or, you know, I did the thing, I cleaned the house, you know, but how do I serve her? Yes, in bed. How do I serve her? You know, in the seasons of life, post-menopause, post-baby, you know, pre-baby, all of those different things.
Service.
How do I do it?
Yeah.
Right? And then do it, right? Like, do it.
One more thing is with family, friends, or whatever, a lot of times women, when I'm talking to women about this, it seems almost like sex is a chore. And when sex just becomes a chore that you just mark that, you know, check that box, Like, something ain't right.
Yeah. Something.
And immediately something, both parties should be working to change that, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's him, whether it's a chore to her because of whatever reason, you know, it's lacking on her part enjoying, or just if it becomes a chore, if sex becomes a chore in your marriage, then nip that sucker right in the bud as soon as it starts.
Yeah.
And you got to deal with that.
Yeah.
Because that's only going to, I mean, it's only going to grow into something more
Unhealthy.
very unhealthy.
Yeah, just bouncing off of what Thomas was saying, you said sex is not everything, and I'm glad you brought that into perspective, because when we look at the Great Commission, right, when we step back a little bit, it's like, man, we're talking about sex, and I don't think about sex, but it's like, man, we're talking about Jesus Christ and the gospel, right, and the Great Commission, and it's like Paul said, marriage is an example of the bride and Christ, right? So basically, it's good that we're talking about it, because the church, how we said, sometimes it's hard to find people talk, especially about sex toys and stuff like that, right? But to just come out and put it in the light and use it for us to grow, I feel that it's a really strong conversation. Actually, I feel like it's needed more.
Absolutely.
I hadn't heard of a Christian sex therapist before, because I was like, just have sex, that's a solution. But there's so much more to it, you know, that we need to get educated on. So, amen.
Anybody else? Anything? Well, the last thing I want to close with is that I think we need to do a better job as Christians, period, of older people teaching younger people and being there to have open conversations with a Trey and Amanda, you know, with a Thomas and Elizabeth. You might not be able to get to a counselor or a therapist, but you can get to an older couple that's been married 15 to 40 to 50 to 60 years. And even not on the topic of sex, period, just other things that are going on in marriages. We got to have mentors. We got to have the older pouring into the younger. And every older does not mean wiser, right? Every person that's older is not necessarily going to have all the answers, but you got to look around your church and you got to think, well, who is a couple that, man, me and my wife, that we can talk to, or me as a man, as a husband, who's a man in here that really I feel like I can go to about stuff that's manly, right? Be okay with doing that. Like, and men, older men, if you're not discipling anybody, you're not mentoring anybody, and you call yourself a Christian for 20, 30 years, what is wrong with you? Why aren't you pouring into these new members in the church? Why aren't you helping young men with their problems in the areas of sex? Like, what is it about you that you think just going to church and listening to a sermon and singing a song is okay? When there's so much devastation that Satan is wreaking havoc on the body, he's wreaking havoc on marriages, and you're not pouring into not one single person when so many need it. That's self-centeredness. That's selfish. And Christ didn't die for us to be selfish with his gospel, with his wisdom, with his principles. And so I want to encourage the older women, the older men, to pour into somebody, help with these types of topics. Adopt somebody into your family, you know, adopt a married couple. Be intentional. Look around the room, look around the church. Is there anybody there that you're like, you know what, that's a young couple right there. I think we could offer them something. Why don't we just go and say, hey, look, we just wanted to say if there's anything y'all ever want, you want to have dinner sometime, lunch, and just talk about, we're an older couple. We've been married 30 years. We see y'all are so cute, and we feel like y'all are, you know, just where we were one day. And if you ever need someone to talk to or want to build a relationship, we'd love to do that with y'all and journey with y'all and just be someone you can confide in. That's what we need more of in the body of Christ for various issues, and especially this topic. So we hope that someone benefited from this conversation today. We know it ain't perfect.
Can I say something about how to use this episode?
Yeah.
I would wonder if you listened to this and you couldn't wait to send sound bites to your spouse because you heard something and you were like, oh, well, Trey said this about Amanda. You need to be more like Trey, or I can't believe that.
It.
Right. And so this may be a great opportunity for you to say, maybe you've watched it. Bring your spouse into that. Hey, can we have date night? What do you think about this? Because it might be uncomfortable just to out of the blue say, hey, can we talk about sex? And we've never talked about it before. Or in your small group. Like, this may be a really beautiful dialogue for you guys to watch before you get together on Wednesday or Sunday night. hey, how is this showing up in your relationships? And so we can be the jumping off point. It was never intended to just be in isolation. And so where is that fostering dialogue for you where you're known by a group of people in your local congregation, or to offer insight into your relationship and bring somebody into that? And so if you had more, I wish that was my wife, or I wish my husband would hear that, I wish she was enthusiastic as Amanda, or whatever. What inside of you can you commit to change? Just one thing. And so we're not, even if nothing about your spouse changes, what is your heart posture? What is something in you where you have either have bitterness or resentment or contempt or unforgiveness, or something that you need to share, that it's like, okay, just confession, just the Lord, the managing of the information is really quite painful. And so just being comfortable enough with the Lord to say, I know that you can handle this. Prepare this information that I want to disclose about my porn or my uncomfort in our marriage or whatever it is. Don't let your silence just fester because you're uncomfortable with it.
Which means pray before you go sending sound bites. Don't be
Yeah.
weaponizing my sound bites.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is true. People do that, and they shouldn't do that. So we want to thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Something Ain't Right, and we hope that you will join us next week. I want to remind you to subscribe. Just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Also hit the notifications button, because we're dropping episodes every other week, and we want you to watch them. We want you to enjoy them. Give us a comment. We're always interested in hearing feedback, because that's how we line up the next show. That's how we address issues in the show. So make sure to leave us a comment and then share it with somebody so that they can benefit from what you heard today. So on behalf of Something Ain't Right hosts, we just want to say peace, and we love you. Thank you for joining in.
Something ain't right.
What?